I think this is a really interesting point, because if there is all this suffering in the world, a lot of people will say, well, what is God doing about it? Why is God asleep at the wheel and not doing anything about it? Well, we already talked about, why God allows suffering. But let's read a couple of verses, and I just want to show you this point. It says, "No man putteth a piece of a new cloth unto an old garment. For that which is put in to fill it up taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved." So we see here in this parable that in order to fix something, sometimes you need to replace it. You want to fix a piece of clothing, rather than destroying a new piece of clothing to fix the old clothing, you would just replace it with the new clothes. And it's the same with wine in this instance. For whatever reason, you don't put new wine into old bottles, you need to put new wine into new bottles. It must be, I think it comes down to fermentation. It must be that an old bottle has already been sort of held the pressure and has been weakened. So if you put new wine into that new bottle, because it's already weakened, it's going to burst and spill that new wine. So you put a new wine into a new bottle so that it is able to hold that. You wouldn't put new wine into an old bottle. So sometimes I would explain it to people this way. Let's go back to that example with the car. If you saw that smashed car, why would you spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to fix that car back up to new? Why not just buy a new car? So it's the same with God. Look at this verse in Hebrews. So we see this principle of not fixing an old garment with a new garment. And look at this. I don't know if you've ever seen this in Hebrews, but it says here in verse 10, "And thou, Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. They shall perish," so we're talking about the world here, "they shall perish, but thou remainest. And they all shall wax old as doth a garment, and as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail." So people will say, what is God doing about this world? Why isn't he fixing the problems? Well, God's plan is not to take a world that is broken and to fix it up. God's plan, like we read about the wine and the clothing, is to replace it with a new piece of clothing. And isn't it interesting here when it talks about the creation of the world, it says here in verse 11 that they shall perish, so this world shall perish, but thou remainest. They all shall wax old as doth a garment, and as a vesture thou shalt fold them up, and they shall be changed. So like we're talking about the clothing, God is not going to fix up this old clothing with a new piece of clothing. God is just going to entirely replace it. Revelation 1 says, "I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven, saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new." So you see how he's not fixing it, he's going to make all things new. "And he said unto me, Write, for the words are true and faithful." So God's plan is not to fix this world. And this is what I would explain to people out soul winning. I say, you're looking at this world, first of all, it's broken, it's sinful. God's plan is not to fix this world. God's plan is to create a new world and then send a Savior to save as many people as possible, all that would believe on him, and then put everyone on the new world. And sometimes I would use the analogy like a hospital. If you're going to build a new hospital, or maybe a hospital's not a good example, but let's say you've got a hospital full of sick people and you want to move them to a clean building. You don't just move all the sick people to the clean building, because now the clean building is going to be infected with all the sick people. You'd want to heal all the people first and cure all the diseases, and then take them out into a new building so that it doesn't infect and you destroy the new building that you're trying to create clean. And that's what God is trying to do.